Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. I was listening to a podcast about Russia and Ukraine. The interviewer asked how the war was going. The interviewee could have said anything, but he wanted to paint a picture, a metaphor. He said, imagine you have a house with 10 rooms, and someone has taken over 2 of the rooms. And from those 2 rooms, they're trying to trash all the other rooms. This person has their own house, so they're not as affected as you, but you are desperately trying to get that person out of the house. That is a metaphor. That is what we covered in the last part, where we looked at how you can tell these stories, almost everyday stories, like going to the mall or buying a cupcake, little everyday things that happen to you and you don't make a note of them. Because when we make a note of them, then we can go, oh, wait, let's file that away. You might not do anything with it, but you're filing it away. And today, we're going to look at why we need to go a little backwards. Because even if you have the stories, what's your starting point? In the Russia versus Ukraine story, the starting point was how to describe a situation where someone has occupied some space and then is creating havoc from there. So they had to create a concept of a house or a mansion and then some of the rooms being occupied. And today, that's kind of how we're going to go about it. We're not going to create any havoc, but we're going to look at the starting point. And the starting point is always the same. It's a single idea. And this idea is often one word or a couple of words, because sometimes a single word won't do. However, just for simplicity's sake, let's start off with a single word. Let's look at a word like stuck. You want to describe that you were stuck and you need a metaphor for it. So you obviously start off with stuck. When we look at any of the ideas, all of those ideas that we had from last week, we notice that we can almost always come up with a story. So what ideas did we have last week? Buying a pizza. Could we get stuck there? Transferring data to a new computer. Going for a walk. Going through security check. Meeting a friend from college. Buying a totally useless app. Setting off the smoke alarm. As you're listening to this podcast, it might be a little hard to wrap around stuck in every single situation, but you might have at least figured out a few of the situations and thought, yeah, I could apply stuck to that. And I could come up with some kind of metaphor, some kind of sequence, some kind of story that tells me how I got stuck. But what if we change the word? What if we took a random word like confidence? Let's take those same situations, which is buying a pizza, transferring data to a new computer, going for a walk, going through security check, meeting a friend from college, buying a totally useless app, setting off the smoke alarm. Well, once again, you have a story that neatly fits into confidence. And I know this is excessive, but let's just go with it. Pick up a third word and pick up a word like random. Buying a pizza, transferring data, going for a walk, going through security check, meeting a friend from college, buying a totally useless app, setting off the smoke alarm. And what you notice very quickly is that you can find a story, or at least twist your story so you can fit any of those terms. Which tells us that the word that you choose isn't as important as you'd believe. Yes, you'd have to have the word in the first place. You'd have to have words like stuck or freedom or whatever you want to convey, because the direction of the story depends on that word. Nevertheless, you can do this exercise with almost any word if you're choosing, and you will find that you can create a story that fits that word. So what we have at this point in time is we want to create a metaphor. We don't want to create a boring metaphor, so we don't talk about everyday life. No, that's what we're doing. We're talking about everyday situations, like a jigsaw puzzle or things like that, just things that you do every day. We have that story, and usually it's like we went into this 1, 2, 3, and now you have the story, and then you go back. What do I want to convey? I want to convey stuck or freedom or a random, and then you put the two pieces together. There are times, however, where the word that you've chosen doesn't fit with the story. If we take the word, just the single word, like confidence, and our everyday story is about transferring data from one computer to another, so from the old computer to the new computer. Now, some of us might have confidence, and we go, okay, we know how to do this, but some of us might be lacking in confidence. And often, if the story doesn't fit, you can go both ways. You can say, well, I started out and I got this new computer, or imagine you got a new computer and you had to transfer all the data. You don't feel that level of confidence, do you? That is often what happens in real life. We lack confidence. So how do we get confident? What we have done there is we've gone down the path of lack of confidence and then pulled it back to confidence. If we had a straight pathway where we were describing confidence, well, we could just go down that pathway to confidence and then continue the story. But sometimes we don't have that pathway. In that case, this magic trick is very crucial, which is you start off with the opposite, which is lacking confidence, and then pull the story back to confidence. A lot of people look around and they see other people writing metaphor and they think, well, I wish I could do that. And you can't just wish it to be true. What you have to do is you have to make a note of everyday events. As you go to the supermarket, as you go to buy some vegetables, whatever it is you're doing, you want to make a note of it. It sounds mundane, I know, but you want to make a note of it. That's how we came up with someone walking down the street and stepping in dog poo. That's how we came up with someone driving down the road and then having those red and blue flashing lights, those wah, wah, wah. So all of those things, they're not particularly unusual, but what people do is they kind of remember it because it's happened to them. And so the metaphors just need a little tweak and they're beautiful. And after that, once we have that story, we can take any word and then slap it. And if you don't have that direct connection, you just take the opposite of that word and you slap it on. And now you have a metaphor. And as a final touch, final example, here's someone who is talking about dopamine. Now, it's quite a complex topic when people start talking about dopamine and how it works and stuff. So you want to simplify it. And this is what the author said. Is the seesaw ever balanced? I don't know about you, but every seesaw I've seen has one side up and the other side down. And if you try to keep it balanced, it will stay that way, but invariably someone will sit on it and one side goes down. That's approximately how dopamine works in the brain. When we do something that we like and we get a response, the dopamine surges in our brain and it causes one side of the seesaw to swing upwards. We get on a high. However, the default position needs to be level. It needs to be balanced. And therefore, the seesaw tries to right itself. But it usually overcompensates. And suddenly, the lower side goes not up to level, but above the level. At this point, we have the opposite of the high. We aren't up, we're down. We feel that something's missing. That's what starts the craving, and that's how dopamine works in the brain. Since the concept is so complex as it is, the metaphor needs to be overly simple. Normally, a too simple metaphor is probably too simple, but we've seen it with all of the dog poo stories and driving on the motorway. You might think it's simple. It's in the way that you explain it, and you can very easily do that by explaining it to someone, putting the word at the top, and seeing how they react. And that's when you'll get this kind of wonderful metaphors that you can use everywhere in your articles, in your presentations, in any kind of communication that you do. And this brings us to the end of this podcast. And you know what we covered? We started out with the simple concepts, the simple stuff that you do every day. We have to write them down. You can't depend on your memory. It's hopeless, believe me. That's what memory is supposed to do, to forget most of the stuff and keep only a little. So write it down. Then get your one word, whatever the one word is, try to fit it. Doesn't fit, make the opposite of the one word, fit it, and that's how it works. If you're still struggling, and this is ad time, this is a commercial, then join us at 5000 BC. You go to 5000bc.com, and we have a forum. You can post your metaphor in the forum and see where it's lacking, and I will come back. And people don't believe this, but I will come back 17, 20 times a day and help you out. And so you can use 5000 BC not only for your metaphors, but also for reviews of your sales page, of your articles. There are lots of articles which are quite different from what you see online. So go to 5000bc.com. Yes, there is a waiting list, but you have to wait just a little while and you'll find out everything. Go to 5000bc.com and we'll see you there. Bye for now. And if you have any questions, email me at sean@psychotactics.com. Bye-bye.